All right, there we are. We're actually live for the first time ever. So forgive me for 1 second. There's probably no one here at the moment anyway. I'm going to go ahead and post this link on Twitter so other people know that we're actually streaming. All right, give me 1 sec. But before we get in tonight, basically, I'm just going to. This is the first time live streaming, so this is going to be an adventure, I would say. But basically, really, just my mindset here is to kind of start going live and interacting with you guys a little bit more and talking about different things. And that's kind of the goal here. And also to go a little bit more in depth to things that I generally can't kind of go into in a regular review because spoilers, and there's only so much time to cover the things that you guys need to know. So that's another reason why we're actually doing the live stream now. That's weird. Okay, give me 1 sec, one more time. But tonight, basically, what we're going to do is go into a couple different main topics here, as you can see listed in the description. I'm going to do a Q&A for, I don't expect a ton of people to actually show up for this, but the people that do show up, if you guys want to ask me any questions about anything, we can go ahead and do that, and that'll be fun. Sorry, I'm typing this Twitter message right now. Got to post in a couple of different things. But basically, yeah, it can be a Q&A. It can be a number of different things. But the reason I'm kind of doing it is just, like I said, go a little bit more in depth into some of the topics that have arrived lately that I haven't really been able to discuss. And that's kind of the point of doing this kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to discuss is Deadpool 2, considering we're still waiting on some people to get in here. But you guys can watch this later once it posts to the channel, and that'll be interesting as well. But if you have any thoughts, feel free to comment them in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking along the way. So the Deadpool 2 trailer dropped today. And Deadpool, the first one, actually, I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was a very unique superhero film, a very unique kind of satirical satire superhero film, but also one that kind of was with the genre conventions at the same time. Like the second half of it, especially, there's still kind of that fourth wall breaking and craziness, but generally there is still the formula, so to speak. Like you're saving a loved one, a villain has come along and done something bad to you, you want to take revenge, and then there's someone kind of stopping you in the way, like kind of with Colossus and Super Teenage Negasonic Warhead. Is that her name? Yeah, but overall, I actually enjoyed the first Deadpool movie. I thought it was, like I said, a really interesting take on the superhero genre. So the second one has really high expectations because the first one, it was kind of like a shot in the dark. It either stuck or it didn't stuck. It didn't stick, and it did, and it did really, really well, especially for an R-rated movie. And I think everyone knew it would kind of do well, except for the studios that kind of didn't want to, make it, which was kind of interesting to me because usually, I mean, I guess it's an R-rated movie and it is kind of a risk for them, a risk for the studio. I mean, but it was kind of a unique thing at the time just because it's, just so different from every other superhero movie, and it's R-rated, and you kind of lose that family element with the R rating, and you lose the merchandising as well. You can't, I mean, you can still make toys and stuff, but you're not really selling to kids anymore because he's cutting people's heads off and shooting people and stuff. But when it comes to actually this Deadpool 2 trailer, I thought it actually did a really good job building anticipation for this upcoming movie. So Josh Brolin seems like a really good fit for Cable. Originally, I was kind of hesitant considering I've heard this from other people as well. He plays Thanos in the upcoming Infinity War movie. And I was kind of like, well, can he really play two characters at once, two villains at once, and, that kind of not be distracting? But it really wasn't in the trailer, at least. I don't know if I haven't seen the movie, obviously. But judging from the trailer, he looks like a perfect fit for this role. He's a great actor, and it seems like he can bring that seriousness, yet also bring the comedy when he needs to at the same time. And it's also, silly, ridiculous Deadpool nonsense too. I mean, there's a jokes. If you probably listened to it, the jab at Justice League about the removal of the mustache. That was actually really great. That was a great joke that I think a lot of people might miss. I think I might have missed it the first time myself because I was just too excited that the trailer just dropped out of nowhere. But that was a nice little jab because if you watch Justice League, you'll know exactly what they're talking about, and you'll know how Henry Cavill's mustache was digitally removed, and it looks just awkward, and you can tell. If you're looking for it especially, you can definitely tell. But that's something that, and you saw the little action figures in the trailer. I'm not going to show you guys the trailer because I already have enough copyright issues with movie reviews. So if I get into trailer reactions, then it's going to be a whole nother ballgame. And they never try to take down my channel or anything, but they do get a little, overzealous with the copyright claims because they think it's not fair use, but that's another conversation altogether. But overall, the Deadpool 2 trailer I thought was great. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. Get you excited for the new Deadpool movie, show you a little bit of the comedic style that's similar to the first one. And I like the fact that the director from John Wick 1, one of the directors anyway, is directing this Deadpool 2 movie. And I think that's a great fit. Considering the action that he helped pull off in the first movie, that will really go well with Deadpool, considering Deadpool is about the comedy, probably first and foremost, but the superhero action is the second biggest ingredient, I would say. And that's something that's very, very important as well. So overall, the Deadpool 2 trailer was great. Like I said, I think it did pretty much everything you needed it to do and everything that people wanted it to do. And that's why it's, trending Reddit and trending on YouTube and all those things. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch it. It's on YouTube pretty much everywhere you can find it. If you like the first Deadpool, I'm pretty confident that this Deadpool will be pretty similar and you'll like this one too. If you didn't like the first Deadpool, this one looks like pretty much the same thing because why change a winning formula? So I think generally this will be the kind of movie that falls along the similar lines of the first one. Like I said, why change a winning formula if it's working? So yeah, Deadpool trailer was great. So something else I want to discuss, Star Wars. So if you guys noticed today, there was some news that D&D from Game of Thrones, the two showrunners for Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, I think are their names. I'm pretty sure that's correct. They are directing a new series of Star Wars films. So that's very interesting because that came out of nowhere. Nobody was reporting that. Nobody was talking about that. And nobody was really getting too much into sorry, it's playing there. Nobody was really getting that, just came out of nowhere, so to speak. It really just kind of caught everyone by surprise and shocked everyone in a lot of different ways. So I'm just, my opinion on it, you guys know I'm a big Star Wars fan. You've seen enough of my product reviews and movie reviews to know, but I still can be, I'd say, pretty objective about it. I think while I gave The Last Jedi a 9 out of 10, it's not a perfect film. Excuse me, and I'm able to recognize the flaws in the movie, and overall, I think The Force Awakens is still a much better film. I give The Force Awakens a 10 versus The Last Jedi a 9. I'm still somewhere between 8.5 and a 9 for The Last Jedi, but I feel like a new series of films with D&D would actually be great because it's weird because all intense fan bases can get kind of a little weird about that kind of stuff. And I feel like, Star Wars is really no exception to that, probably more so. I feel like Star Wars probably gets a little bit more intense than pretty much every other fan base. But Game of Thrones is up there. And the reason I bring that up is because Game of Thrones fans, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan myself, and I pretty much know about most of the goings-ons. Like, I follow the show pretty closely. I follow the subreddit fairly closely. And a lot of Game of Thrones fans haven't liked the last two seasons, especially this season, because it's very different than what George R.R. Martin would have written. But the fact that they had to, kind of take their own path, so to speak, considering George R.R. Martin they passed the books at this point. People are kind of weird about it, and they don't necessarily like this season of Game of Thrones or the season 6 of Game of Thrones. And that's something that's sort of divisive, I would say. And that's similar to The Last Jedi in that way. But for me, I love that these two are directing a Star Wars series of films because I think season 7 of Game of Thrones is amazing. Depending upon what you think about it or how you feel about the books, whether you've read the books or the earlier seasons, I like the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. My two favorite seasons are season 6 and season 7, the two most recent seasons. And they are mostly directed by D&D and not George R.R. Martin. And I'm sure that's probably a little bit of a controversial take, I would say, just because a lot of people feel like the older seasons are better. But for me, I like the older seasons. I think they're good, but I find them a little too political sometimes. It's not really necessarily my forte. I like that kind of stuff, but I like the action. I like the fantasy elements. You guys know I mentioned we're talking about Star Wars here. I love Star Wars. It's still fantasy. It's still sci-fi. I love Marvel movies. I love seeing that fantasy content. So generally, I like when there's dragons and White Walkers and that kind of stuff. And I like the action and the big set pieces and those kind of things because I find it impressive and I enjoy watching it. But generally, with D&D directing Star Wars films, I'm good with it. For me personally, if you guys have followed Star Wars or you're big fans and follow it kind of relatively closely, then I'm then you would know that a lot of Star Wars fans are really into the idea of an Old Republic trilogy. And for me, I'm very much down with that, considering I played the first two Knights of the Old Republic games, the only two ones. I loved both those games. I'm a huge fan of Revan. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, period. And I think Star Wars fans have been clamoring for a Revan movie for a while, a long time. And the fact that they might actually get one is pretty exciting, I would say. I would say that it actually is one of the more exciting elements, period, considering Star Wars fans, like I said, have been clamoring for this for a very, very long time. And that's something that myself included is very, very excited about. So the possibility that they could do an Old Republic trilogy is great. That's exactly what people are looking for, and that's exactly what I think people are generally going to be interested in. Disney may choose to go a different direction, considering they have all these, Solo, literally a Solo movie. They have a bunch of Solo movies happening. Rian Johnson has his own trilogy coming. That's another topic altogether. And whether that will actually I'm guessing Disney will stick with that, but the point is they have two separate, I guess, trilogies or series happening, plus a bunch of solo films. So I guess they're kind of marveling it. They're kind of creating a universe, and that's the direction they want to go. There's more money in it. There's universe building. You get people more connected to the characters. That's kind of why they do it, and that's really the plan, I would say. But for me, there's a lot of basically it's all speculation at this point, because no one really knows for sure which direction Rian Johnson or D&D are going to go with their series or trilogies. So for me, like I said, I would prefer Knights of the Old Republic, an Old Republic style show, because that era just hasn't really been ever touched on by the films. It's been touched on by the games and comics and stuff. So a lot of it's not necessarily canon anymore, which is kind of interesting to think about. So Revan is not canon anymore. Malik and all of them are not canon. Malgus are not canon. So if you've played the games, you kind of know who those characters are. But basically, this takes place thousands of years, a couple thousand years before the main Star Wars happenings. And that's kind of, something that's, I think, like I said, a lot of Star Wars fans will really enjoy, because hardcore fans are really into that era and that time period. And that's something that a lot of people really, really are looking forward to. So generally, though, I think what this says is that Disney is investing even further in the Star Wars brand. I mean, they spent $4 billion on this brand. So they're going to literally milk everything they can out of it. They're going to get as much as they can out of it, because it's their cash cow. I mean, they have Marvel too, so that's another one. But they're going to, while these films are popular, while Star Wars is popular, still popular, and people aren't fatigued with it, why everything else, why Marvel is still popular and those kind of things, they are going to get as much as they can out of these movies. Sorry, I'm checking on Twitter real quick. It looks like people didn't get this stream. But yeah, I think generally these Star Wars films are a good thing to have, just because, it's like I said, it's kind of divisive right now, and there's a reason it's divisive, because let me just talk about that real quick. So every fan base, every very serious fan base has problems, and it almost feels like sometimes like they hate their own their own series, their own genre of films. And that's a sad way to look at it, but it is kind of the reality of things. Game of Thrones fans do it as well. I think a lot of, more serious fan bases do it. And there's a reason for that, just because people are really passionate about it. But the controversy comes in when people are saying that they don't want new Star Wars movies because nothing will ever be as good as the original. Well, that may be the case to a lot of people, but for some people, actually, they, love that they're getting new Star Wars movies. They love that they're getting new installments in the franchise and a bunch of different things happening at once. And that's kind of the reason that people want to tune into these movies. And Star Wars fans are kind of a little bit difficult in that way. Like I said, I consider myself a diehard one in a lot of ways. But you have to be realistic about this and say that mindset is kind of dangerous to me, to say nothing will ever be as good as the original trilogy, so you should never make another Star Wars movie. I don't necessarily agree with that mindset. The way that I kind of approach it is that you should be open to those kind of things, and then kind of, go from there. That's kind of how I view it, so to speak. But let me just check on the stream quality real quick, because it looks like things aren't... Okay. Looks like we're still good. All right. Let's see. Oh, that's why. Okay. Now let's check it. Sorry, guys, for the stream issue. Okay. There we go. Okay. They got it. Okay. Sorry, the stream was set to private. That was weird. So I fixed that. It should be fixed. Okay. So now that we got that resolved, so back on what I was discussing. So I was talking about Star Wars fans and how generally they don't. Some of them are, sort of resistant to the idea of new films because they love the original trilogy and they don't want anything to sort of ruin that trilogy. Like I said, I don't necessarily identify with this mindset. I don't necessarily like it, and there's a reason for it. Like I said, Force Awakens is my favorite Star Wars movie. I know that's kind of heresy at this point because it's kind of popular to hate on The Force Awakens. I'm not sure how that came to be. Because when The Force Awakens originally came out, everyone loved it. I didn't really see much hate towards it at all. But now that The Force Awakens has been out a little while, it seems like it's popular and trendy to hate on it. So you see a lot of Star Wars fans saying how much it sucks and how much it's a reboot of A New Hope and those kind of things. And it's not those things. I mean, it is very similar to A New Hope in a lot of ways, but that was deliberately intentional because Star Wars has been, out of the box office for 15 years, right? The old movies came out for a long time ago, the prequel trilogy. And there's a reason that Disney kind of approached it that way. They approached it that way because they wanted to bring those feelings of nostalgia back and revive the Star Wars franchise. And they did it that way because, intentionally to, sort of bring back the old trilogy style and not the prequels, because a lot of people felt like the prequels kind of failed in that way. So that's why necessarily people are kind of more, hating on The Force Awakens where they probably shouldn't be. It's not necessarily fair. That's something that I think people probably need to realize when they consider these things. But generally, I just think that The Force Awakens is just, a very good movie. Kylo Ren is one of my favorite characters. There's a reason he's one of my favorite characters. I like the fact that he's conflicted. I like the fact that he is a dynamic character that can do a lot of different things. And there's a reason that Kylo Ren is really so popular right now. And I also like Rey. I think Rey's a great character. Rey gets a lot of crap because people consider her a Mary Sue, and there are definitely some Mary Sue elements to her, I would say. But on the same token, Luke Skywalker kind of is not that different. I mean, he had more training, and he is the son of Anakin Skywalker, so I get kind of the bloodline argument. But there are some Mary Sue elements to Luke, and besides the fact that Anakin is the chosen one, he's a Mary Sue as well. I mean, he's just kind of great at everything. I guess the problem lies in the fact that Rey gets good at things faster. Like Anakin trains for a long time and loses to Count Dooku and, loses duels and fights and struggles. And Rey kind of doesn't. Rey is just kind of great and wins at everything and is the best pilot and is the strongest. And there's something, that people don't like about that. And I get that. I get that argument. I get that, sort of point of view. But I do understand. I try to be, understanding about that and realize that it is Star Wars. And that has kind of been a part of it to an extent. Rey is just a little bit more extreme of an example. But like I said, Mary Sue's exist in Star Wars. Like, they just do. Like, Poe, there's no real explanation for why Poe is so great at being a pilot. I don't think they ever really go into his details as his training or those, so to speak, those things. He's just the best pilot. He just is. That's really the explanation for it. So, like, why is, Han the best smuggler? I think he just kind of is. So he's just the best pilot too. And maybe the new Han Solo movie will go into it, but yeah, we'll discuss that. So first comment here, from Dennis, when you are a skillful person, you tend to pick things up faster. Correct. And that's kind of why Rey is, as great as she is, because she's so competent, because she's so strong and, great in a lot of ways. And she's obviously stronger with the Force than most people realize. And she has a lot of skills that most people, I guess, don't recognize, that they don't want to acknowledge because she's just so good so naturally. But sometimes people are just naturally good at things. If you've ever played sports in your life, this is different than Star Wars, obviously, but it still relates. If you've ever played sports in your life or video games, I have friends who are just naturally great at video games, right? And I suck. I'm good at football and sports games, but when it comes to first person shooters, I'm very mediocre. And I have friends who are just great at it naturally, and I don't know why. They've not really been playing too much more than I have. They're just better. They're just naturally better. I'm naturally, I was naturally a little more athletic than a lot of my friends, and that's just, something that's natural. Some people have natural innate abilities, and Ray just happens to be exceptional at a few different things that are relevant in the Star Wars universe. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But generally, since people are here now, what got me on this conversation was Star Wars and the announcement that D&D from Game of Thrones, the showrunners from Game of Thrones, are producing, I believe, not directing, producing a new Star Wars series of films. And the reason I talk about this stuff is because there's been kind of a divisive response to this. There's been some people who really like this announcement and some people who are less than thrilled about it, I would say, because the Disney is sort of branching out and putting out a lot of Star Wars movies. Some people think it's kind of overkill. Thanks, Dennis, for the correction. They're writing it too. That's great. I'm glad they're writing because they're good writers. They don't get enough credit for how well they write. But I'm happy that Disney is branching out, so to speak, and creating a Star Wars universe. And that's, the universe is so big. It's such a big galaxy, and it's been so confined to like a couple families. And I kind of like that they're kind of spreading out, even though they are still making Han Solo movies and Kenobi movies and those kind of things. But still, they are branching out with Rogue One, and they're going to do 2 separate trilogies. Who knows what they're going to be? But I mentioned earlier, I think there weren't enough people here that I hope Star Wars fans, including myself, hope that the D&D trilogy is Old Republic. Because considering, even though it's very different technology and environments and backdrops, the fact that they've been so successful with Game of Thrones with a sort of medieval tone to it and vibe to it makes me think that they would nail the Old Republic, that they would be perfect for it. And that's kind of where my mind lies at this point. I mentioned that I love Darth Revan. Darth Revan is my favorite character from the Old Republic. He's probably my second favorite character, period, in Star Wars, behind Kylo Ren. So I don't know why I've always kind of gravitated towards villains. I'm not sure why that is. I don't consider myself a villain, but I like to gravitate towards the villains. I like conflicted villains. I like villains that have layers to them, and those kind of things. But Dennis is saying Darth Revan, he's from a game or 2 games. Well, he's in the first one, Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars game, and he's in a game called The Old Republic, another Star Wars game, which is an MMO, which I have not played. But yes, he is if you look into Star Wars lore, Revan is a very popular, very conflicted. He goes back and forth between the light and the dark, and that's kind of what makes him sort of an interesting character. Also, too, I should note that if you're hearing like some buzzing sound in the background, it's raining outside, and that you can hear the kind of raindrops on the window outside. And it's really windy, so if you hear some crazy sounds, that's what it is. But generally, I think, I'm happy about the new Star Wars films. I'm happy that they're taking things in new directions. I want to kind of see what they're going to do especially with Rian Johnson's trilogy, because that trilogy in particular, to me, is very interesting because, for one, I don't know about what he's going to do. And the fact that The Last Jedi was so divisive and a lot of fans seem to hate it, I wonder if Disney reconsidered having him for a trilogy. That's what I wonder, because I don't think they've had that kind of backlash to a film. I mean, they've released 3 films now, right, in the Star Wars universe. Han Solo, the Solo movie would be 4th. I don't know exactly how they're gonna approach that. I think generally, I don't know. I'm still fine with Rian Johnson directing a trilogy because I like The Last Jedi. I still kind of loved it. I gave it a 9. Like, I'd probably give it 8.5 or a 9 if I had to rate it again. But generally, I think I don't know. His writing style, if he's going to go that style again, then it's going to be tough because he went very much away from Star Wars. He very much tried to do his own thing, and he went against the grain, so to speak. He wanted to go against expectations, and that's kind of the direction he wanted to go. And Rian Johnson, that's just kind of the style he wants to adopt. Star Wars and Disney wanted to try something different. They wanted to do something different. People didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. I liked it. Still, some others enjoyed it. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But Dennis says hopefully he'll tell smaller stories. He's better at that. Yeah, I think the only other movie I've seen of his was Looper. And I have to look at his IMDb page and check. But Looper was great. Everyone loved Looper, but Looper is a very different movie than Star Wars. Still sci-fi, but very, very different sci-fi. But yeah, so I think generally, yeah, Rian Johnson will do a fine job. But yeah, let's talk about Cloverfield Paradox. So I'm not going to get into. You guys, let me know in the chat if you want me to get into spoilers or not. That's really depending upon how you. Yeah, Dennis is right. He did direct an episode of Breaking Bad. He directed Ozymandias, didn't he? Or Granite State, one of those two, one of the final couple episodes, which was great. But yes, I'm going to talk about Cloverfield Paradox because it's very divisive right now as well. Another divisive topic, and I think we should probably discuss it. I won't get into spoilers unless you guys want me to. So please let me know in the chat. Type something if you want me to get into spoilers or not. But for now, I'm going to stick to non-spoilers like I kind of did in my review. You guys know if you watch my review that I really like this movie. I don't read reviews beforehand. I don't read reviews before I watch movies because I don't want my perception to be changed going in based on the reviews that I've read. And that's why I don't read them. Sometimes I will look at scores. You guys know that. I've talked about that in reviews. I will look at scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but I won't read the reviews. And there's a reason that I do that just because, well, for one, I kind of know what I know. I want to know kind of what I'm getting into quality-wise, but still I don't let that sway me too much. The reason I do it is because I'm on time constraints, and I have to kind of be selective about movies I review and what I kind of go and see. And with all the requests I have to do from you guys and all the other stuff that I have going on, work and school. Like I said, I don't do this full time like some of the other, big movie critics. So, I try to I have to pick and choose kind of what I'm going to do. I usually do like 2 or 3 videos a week, usually around 3 videos a week. I try to get to at least 1 request a week, but it really depends on what I'm doing. So if a movie's got like really bad reviews, then I necessarily won't waste time watching it, because if it's got like a 5% or something or 10%, then or it doesn't have a lot of buzz around it. You guys, I kind of feel like you guys won't care whether I review it or not, then I'll just pass on it. Because I don't really get, like I said, I can't review everything. And you guys, like I said, I'm probably not going to see 50 Shades because you guys don't care about my review on 50 Shades. Like you're not going to see it anyway. So that's kind of my approach to it. But generally, so Cloverfield Paradox, it got like a 16%, something along those lines. And that's very, very low to me. I'm going to check now. I think it went up a bit to maybe 20, but it might have gone back down again. And that's crazy to me, because I think when I was constructing my review, I was like, you know what? This movie was really good, and I'm expecting it to get similar reviews at the very least to what the original Cloverfield got. Oh, that's why. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to type this into Rotten Tomatoes while I'm talking to you guys. I thought 10 Cloverfield Lane got really great reviews. They got like a 90%. Okay, so Cloverfield Paradox sitting at a 19%, 56% by the audience. So that's very low from the audience too. So obviously people, Dennis, you're not going to see 50 Shades. You're not going to see 50 Shades. But yeah, I think a lot of people, even fans, didn't like this movie. It's another one of those kind of polarizing films. I've been on the Cloverfield subreddit, and a lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people, I guess there's not really much in between. There's really love or kind of hate, very polarizing in that way. But I really loved it because for me, it felt more like a Cloverfield movie than 10 Cloverfield Lane did. I like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think it's good. I don't know if I reviewed it or not. I think if I did, I probably would have given it like an 8 out of 10. So I enjoyed 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't dislike it. I like the original Cloverfield a lot more than both of them. I think the original Cloverfield is very good. I think generally there's a reason for, why it's so good. I think the reason is that it's different and it's well constructed for the most part. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone because of the fact that it's handheld and is very shaky and sort of weird type of monster movie. It's not typical. It's not standard in any way. I think generally, yeah, I think Cloverfield I think it's a great movie because it's different and because I found it very exciting. I found the characters likable and interesting. I found the way it's constructed to be high quality. I found it to be unique and entertaining. Yeah, I can kind of tend to agree, Dennis. Cloverfield Lane is a bad Cloverfield film, but a really good film. I can totally agree. I think part of the reason that I didn't like it, sorry if I'm wiping my nose a lot. I have a little bit of a cold, I think. I think the reason that I didn't like it as much is because I went in with the expectation that it was going to be a big Cloverfield film. And considering it was the next film after the original Cloverfield, I expected to see the monster and I expected to see at least some sort of tie-in, and it just didn't really do that. And it was kind of wanted to stand alone on its own movie. And now with the Cloverfield Paradox out, it makes sense why they did this because there is logic behind it that I won't go into now because not everyone has watched it. Um, but there is logic behind kind of why they took that approach and why they did that. Why there's not a Cloverfield monster. I won't ruin Cloverfield Lane for you, but why there's not a monster at the end, but there's something else different, and why it takes a different approach overall. But yeah, I generally really like this movie because the cast is fantastic. I talked about that. Gugu Mbatha Raw is really great. David Oyelowo is good. Daniel Bruhl is good. There were some other actors in it that names are passing me by right now that were also very good, and I definitely really enjoyed them as well. And I think generally it's fairly similar yet a little more out there and weird than Life. So if you saw Life back in I think it was January of last year. It was early last year, I think. I honestly can't remember. But if you saw Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds and Rebecca Ferguson, it's a similar movie. It's a pretty similar movie, yet a little more out there and a little more sci-fi, I would say. That's kind of what Life and Cloverfield Paradox and they kind of mesh together in that way. It's just that the one thing I do want to touch on, though, is some people don't feel like the Cloverfield movies, or these two Cloverfield movies, especially this one, are really connected to the universe in a way that feels cohesive and coherent. So some people feel like it's sort of retconned and tacked on at the end, like Cloverfield is sort of slapped onto a failing movie and then just called a Cloverfield film, and then it's sort of added stuff in to make it connect. And that really might be the case. I don't know for sure. It's really guesswork trying to decipher what's going on behind the scenes and decipher what the process is in making these films. But generally speaking, I don't feel that way in particular because I feel like there's very deliberate attempts to either drop Easter eggs or to drop little hints, subtle hints that sort of direct you back to the Cloverfield universe. And that's kind of how I view things in particular. Like, there's an interview in the beginning of the film that I won't go into, but that explains a lot of things about what this movie is trying to achieve and what it's trying to tell you about the Cloverfield universe and this specific story. And the reason it does that, some people consider it overly, heavy in exposition, but for me, it's necessary, and and it's intentional, and it does it in a way to tie this universe in together. And I don't feel like it's retconned in. I feel like it was part of the plan. If I had to guess, I feel like it's coherent. I feel like it makes sense. I feel like it follows a good path and connects to everything as well as it can. But like I mentioned in my review, there are absolutely two ways to interpret these type of movies. So I don't consider Cloverfield Paradox that much different than movies like Coherence, like I reviewed via request, or Triangle, like I reviewed via request. Those type of movies that are very ambiguous. I mentioned It Comes at Night in my review. That's another movie that is very ambiguous. In a lot of ways, to some people's perception of the detriment of the film. Some people really didn't like It Comes at Night because it's so ambiguous. And if you don't like It Comes at Night and its ambiguity, you won't like this movie either. Because there are a lot of things that happen that just aren't explained, that aren't fully detailed, and they just happen. And that's kind of your job to go into the situation and figure out what's going on and how, what's going on in this world and this ship and, how things are kind of progressing. So that's kind of your approach. That's kind of the job that the movie instills upon you to get you engaged and active and not passive and just a spectator, to get you kind of feeling like you need to play a part in this movie. And that's kind of the way of going about it, I would say, that they approached it with. And I like that because I agree, Dennis. He said I love the ambiguity and It Comes at Night. So you might be seeing this on a little bit of delay from when I'm reading these comments, but Yes, I love the ambiguity in it as well, and I like ambiguity in film. I don't always love it. Sometimes the ending can be too ambiguous, and sometimes the ending can um, be a little, like I said, not wrap things up and not explain things. But It Comes at Night, I liked it because I feel like, I guess the characters, it's not really ever explained whether how much the characters know. For me, I kind of feel like they don't know much, and then you don't know much by extension of what they know. So they don't know much, then you don't know much, and you're kind of in sync with each other. Um, but that's kind of how I think they designed it. And I feel like the director of It Comes at Night sort of, took that approach. He wanted to make it so you don't know much and you don't know where the threats are coming from. You don't know what the threat is. Is it people? Is it zombies? Is it ghosts? What is it? You don't know. And that's kind of how Cloverfield Paradox approaches things. It does it in a similar kind of fashion. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of things that just aren't explained. They aren't detailed. And that's intentional. It's deliberate because Cloverfield is probably the most engaging type of film that I can remember, at least watching lately, because it just doesn't, it like, there's so many theories that you can come up with. If you go on the Cloverfield subreddit on Reddit, you will find so many theories about how these movies are connected, what's happening, and those kind of things. And I like that because it builds a community, it gets people engaged with your product, and that's kind of the way of going about to make things a little more engaging and interesting. And I like that. I think that's very cool. So it really just depends on kind of what you're looking for in a film. But overall, I think the Cloverfield Paradox is unique. I think it's pretty similar. It feels like a Cloverfield movie more than 10 Cloverfield Lane did, and I like that about it. I like that it feels connected, and to me it makes sense. Like, it makes sense enough where I can put the pieces together. But like I said, there's a million different theories that you could come up with and try to resolve those kind of things. It was about what it needed to be about. The world is irrelevant to the story. For It Comes at Night, the world is kind of irrelevant to the story, but the problem to me is the fact that it was marketed as something kind of different than what it was. I mean, I think there was one trailer that said humans are monsters, something along those lines, something like that. And that kind of, I guess, was the telltale sign that things weren't going to be as supernatural and zombie-ish as people intended or people thought they might be. But the original trailer and some of the marketing was certainly misleading, and I totally get why people were upset about it and I get why it has negative reviews from the audience members on Rotten Tomatoes, because it is certainly different and certainly was misleading in its marketing in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's different in that way, and its marketing was sort of controversial for good reason. So there's a reason that people kind of were upset with it. So generally, yeah, It Comes at Night is still a good movie. Like I said, I still really enjoyed it. But Cloverfield Paradox is very similar. I think, like I mentioned in my review, if you haven't seen the original Cloverfield film or the two Cloverfield films, the predecessors, or the, I guess I don't know the wrong word. Sorry, the two original Cloverfield films. If you haven't seen those films, I feel like you probably will not love this movie, because it does kind of connect and does feel like a Cloverfield film, and it makes references and does sort of things. And that's part of the fun. Part of the fun is connecting the pieces, connecting the dots. And without that, it's, that's part of it, honestly. It's still a good movie. Without that, you can still enjoy it, but I do feel like you probably should watch the original two films. That's just my take on it. So, other than that, you guys, I don't think the people that are here, I don't think you guys saw my original thoughts on Deadpool 2, and I'll get to that in a second. So I asked if there was any questions in the chat. Dennis commented a question in the chat. What are your thoughts on the Florida Project? You asked me about this on Twitter. So I saw Florida Project a while back. Actually, I saw it before I did the WillFoxification Movie Awards, which is why I put Willem Dafoe in Best Supporting Actor. I really liked the Florida Project a lot. I'm going to review it soon. I have the Florida Project, not it, the you see behind you, Florida Project, and I, Tonya, both on the docket to be reviewed. I have seen I, Tonya twice, actually, so I have some pretty significant thoughts on it, and I really enjoyed both movies. Florida Project is one of the best movies of the year. I think it should have been nominated for Best Picture. I think The Post being nominated over it is a travesty, because The Post is, in my opinion, not a very good movie, and I found the Florida Project to be a much more engaging type of film than The Post ever could dream of being. And I just think the Florida Project is very ambitious, but it also is about as genuine as you can get, because it's filmed on real locations. A lot of them aren't even actors. Willem Dafoe feels like the only actor in the movie. The one lead actress, I guess she's the lead actress, the mom, she was a model off Instagram. That's where they got her from. That's awesome. Supposedly the kid they got from some kind of similar situation as well. I'm not sure exactly the details of that. But yeah, I think the Florida Project is a great film, and I think it's not my favorite of the year, but it's certainly one of my favorites. I think it'd be probably in the top 10, around there, top 12-ish, top 15 at least. So sorry, I have a cold, so that's fine. I'm wiping my nose. But yeah, if there's any other questions, let me know. But I'll jump back into Deadpool 2 again, because I think when this goes up on the channel for watching for everyone else, I think a lot of people are going to be confused about it, because they're going to be like, Will kind of repeated and looped over himself. But that's because it looked like people weren't in the chat when I was streaming that part of it. So talking about Deadpool 2. So Deadpool 2 trailer dropped today. It dropped in seemingly the middle of nowhere, kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. And I think Deadpool 2 is going to be very good. The trailer actually impressed me. It looked funny. It looked like a Deadpool movie. It looked like what a sequel should do. It's bigger. It has more characters, more superheroes. It looks like more X-Men, so to speak. What was her name? Teenage Super Mega Sonic Warhead. I forget her name. She had a new costume, and I'm sure they'll make references about that. I talked about how the mustache joke, about how it kind of rips on Justice League with Henry Cavill's mustache, Superman's mustache. That was cool. I like that as well. So that was another nice touch as well. So Deadpool is going to be very self-aware. It's going to be very fourth wall breaking, very R-rated and touchy. It's going to be sort of kind of out there and crazy, but I like that about it. And the trailer looked good. Josh Brolin looks like a perfect fit for Cable. I wasn't sold on that. I think maybe there were a couple other actors that I would have picked over him, especially considering he's upcoming as Thanos. And I didn't feel like he should probably play both villains, but hey, here we are, and looks like he's doing a great job. Speaking of that, so Dennis said, you have It over the Florida Project. Yes. I'm very much on an island, it seems like, with It. So I think a lot of people liked It. I watched a couple other critics here on YouTube, their top 10 of the year. And I think it was on Jeremy John's. It might have been like number 3 or 4 or something. But I don't think it was on any other ones. I'm not sure of any of the other ones that I watched. So definitely on an island with It. You could see the poster behind me, so you kind of know that I love it. But to me, okay, a lot of people are going to wonder why I put It at number 1, and some people don't like that. I might do a video on this eventually. I'm going to do a video essay on It for sure. But I might do a video on the topic, a little more broad discussion there. Do people feel pressured to say that they like a certain movie over another due to peer pressure or professional influence? But what I mean by that is, when you watch, like, do you feel like, if I ask you your favorite movie of all time, or your top 10 favorite movies of all time, how many people do you think are going to say The Godfather, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump? Like, how many people are going to say those movies, those type of movies that are considered the best of all time, generally speaking, right? How many people are going to say those, but actually mean it? Like, if you were to go and sit down, if you were stuck on an island with a random Blu-ray player, right, and it worked, and you had to pick 10 Blu-rays to watch for the rest of your existence, like Tom Hanks in Castaway, couldn't remember the movie. You had to watch 10 Blu-rays like you were in Castaway. Would you really pick those movies? I think rewatchability is a factor. I don't think it's the only factor, but I think you have to consider your overall experience, and don't feel pressured because you feel like you need to like something else because everyone else likes it. You know what I mean? Like, if other people aren't picking It as their number 1 movie, that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to pick it because I think it's number 1. It was the number 1 experience for me. I liked it the best. I had the most fun with it in the theater. I had, it had the most lasting impact on me. And obviously, as a critic on YouTube, I feel the pressure to pick other movies because it's what people want me to do, right? People want me to say the best movie is Blade Runner, which I don't agree with, or the best movie is Calling by Your Name, which Calling by Your Name is probably top 5 for me. I loved it. One of my favorites. It stuck with me a lot. But for me, what it comes down to is, Yeah, I put John Wick in number 2 for the same reason. I had the best experience with it. I had the most fun with it. Fun's not the only factor, and comes to dramas. But what hit me the most? What was the most best theater experience I had? That's really what it comes down to, and really what I think. Also, I judge obviously the construction based on what I lay out in all my reviews. Basically, what I'm talking about: cinematography, audio, music, acting, all the major stuff. So that's all factors as well. So it to me is just a great film, and I think the reason I liked it so much is because it's more than a horror movie, and that's probably what I'm going to name my video essay. It more than a horror movie, because it is. It's comedy, it's drama in some ways, and it's certainly scary. I found very scary elements to it, but it's not like straight balls to the wall horror like Annabelle, right? Or The Exorcist or something crazy like that. The problem with the thing that I liked about it is that it's formulaic, but in a different kind of way. It mixes a couple different genres, and I think I like that more than what you just. I know I like that a lot more than what you just get from standard horror films. Like every horror film nowadays is kind of the same. Like Annabelle is the same, and these movies I liked. Like Ouija is pretty much the same. I mean, they're all good. I like these movies a lot. I mean, I don't see a lot of horror movies. Like Don't Breathe was kind of interesting, I guess. That's more thriller than horror. But they all kind of follow the same kind of path, But yeah, Dennis said the Florida. Dennis is the only one commenting right now. But if anyone else wants to comment, feel free. Don't feel shy to jump in and post your thoughts. The Florida Project, Call Me by Your Name, and 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri were the ones that hit me hard in all caps. Yes, I agree. I think you're probably basing off that comment. I think you're a little bit higher on the Florida Project than I am, or not the Florida Project. 3 billboards. I like 3 billboards a lot. Didn't I give it like an 8.5 or 9, something along those lines? I liked it a lot. I don't love it. I like it a lot. I think the ending was that's one of those ambiguous endings that didn't work for me. So it really is a case by case basis. Because I don't feel like the rest of the movie is really that ambiguous, but that ending is, and that was kind of weird about it. So that was an interesting movie. But yeah, Frances McDormand is fantastic. I have a feeling she's going to win the Oscar, because my prediction is, I actually should do a separate podcast about this, or a separate live stream about this. But my prediction is that Allison Janney is going to win Best Supporting Actress, and they're not going to give Best Lead Actress to Margot Robbie because they don't want 2 people from the same movie winning 2 major awards. So what I think they're going to do is give Frances McDormand the lead and give Allison Janney the supporting. That's what I think is going to happen. And I'm fine with that. I would pick Margot Robbie, but I'm totally fine with Frances McDormand because she was fantastic. She is my second choice, and I would not be upset if she won. I just think Margot Robbie would be cool for her to win because she's so young. She has so much career in front of her. And I just feel like she was great in I, Tonya, and such a fantastic performance. Now that Frances McDormand wasn't, she was amazing as well. But yeah, generally I think, the Oscar. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about that, because the Oscars coming up, March 4th. I'll probably do an Oscar predictions video, but what I'll probably do is probably do a live stream or something similar like this, because last time I did a video. It was last year I did a Oscar predictions video, and I remember I put that took a lot of work. That probably took the amount of work that it took to make the WillFoxification Movie Awards, which is a really heavy video, very time consuming. And I'm not complaining because I enjoy it, but the Oscar review, it didn't seem like people really too much cared about it, my predictions. Well, they cared about it, but not as much to the level of effort I put into it. Like I did a lot of research for it and went pretty heavy into it, and people didn't seem to really care. So what I'll probably do is just kind of do a live stream and just talk about it that way, and then cite those stats and not have too much, going on, and then kind of go from there. So Dennis said he's not watching the Oscars. Well, the Oscars, I think I'm going to live stream during the Oscars, but I don't think I'm going to live stream the Oscars. So I'm not going to have like a little box in the bottom of the corner with the Oscars live stream in it, because I will get taken down pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure that UT will be all over me for copyright, and probably justly so, rightly so. So what I'm probably going to do is live stream and just me talking, and then maybe I'll have it on in the background or something. You can hear the audio or something, but that'll be about it, because I'm not, like I said, I've never had a copyright strike, but I have had several copyright claims. Paramount Studios is especially bad about copyright claims with me, so they are particularly aggressive with my videos. So those kind of things are always interesting for sure. So I think that's pretty much everything that I was going to discuss. But it doesn't seem like too many people are commenting right now, so I'm sure people will watch this later. But if anyone wants to ask me any questions or wants me to talk about something else, then let me know before I sign off out of here, because there are definitely some stuff that I can still talk about. Oh, before we go, Solo, I don't think I got into that. I like the Solo trailer a lot. Solo is a movie that I was not necessarily super hyped for. Like I said, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But Solo was not a movie that really was on too big. I was obviously going to see it and review it. I was never not going to. But it wasn't a movie that I was like super hyped for, like Infinity War, right? Infinity War, I see the trailers, I'm like, oh my god, Infinity War, because I love it. It's going to be amazing, and I love Marvel. Some of the movies lately have kind of disappointed me, but still. But Solo, the trailer really hooked me and got me hype. Like I was like, wow, this looks good, and I feel like I was actually kind of shocked by that, considering they had to like reshoot the whole movie. It seemed like they had a new director, threw out the Lego movie directors, brought in Ron Howard, so it'll be interesting to watch. Donald Glover looks amazing as Lando. He looks like he's going to be perfect for the role. He looks awesome. He's gonna be great in it. Another cast, I forget the guy's name. If you guys can tell me in the chat, of Han Solo, who plays Han Solo. It's like Heinrich something. I don't remember. Let me check on that. But yeah, he actually kind of reminded me of Han Solo. And Alden Ehrenreich. Okay, that's his name. So Alden Ehrenreich. So he's our new Han Solo, or our young Han Solo, so to speak. We'll see what happens with that. I'm actually kind of excited for it. I think he will do a good job, hopefully, because what I got from the trailer, he didn't say much, but I got good vibes with him. He reminded me of Han Solo. A lot of people didn't agree. Dennis is hashtagging not my Solo, not my Lando. I like these two, so I think they'll be fine. So I think we'll be all right with those two. But yeah, the trailer hooked me. There's definitely some. It looked like there was some sort of like plasma weapon or something. It almost looked like a lightsaber, but it's not. It's like looks like bounty hunters maybe. If you watch the trailer, it looked like kind of bounty hunters in there. And I think that's kind of what. And as I get more comfortable with these live streams, I'll start like showing objects on screen. But I'm still kind of this is my first time, so I'm still kind of new to figuring this stuff out. So generally though, yeah, I think Solo looks good. I think it looks like kind of Rogue One-ish, I guess I would say, which I liked Rogue One a lot. But yeah, let me talk about Rogue One real quick. So there's this weird thing going on right now, like I mentioned before a lot of you were here. The Force Awakens is getting a lot of hate right now, and Rogue One is getting a lot of praise. So when Rogue One came out, Rogue One was generally well accepted. People liked it a lot. But now I'm hearing people say that it's a masterpiece and that it is the best Star Wars movie ever, or top 2 behind Empire, right? And I don't agree with that. I gave Rogue One a 9 out of 10. So it was another movie I really enjoyed, but I wouldn't say I loved it. Like, I liked it a lot. That's how I consider a 9. Like, I'm on the brink of loving it, but I'm not quite there, right? And the reason for that is the same reason, actually. I watched Chris Stuckman's review on it, and the same reason that he cited is the same way that I feel about it. I feel that the characters were sort of lacking, and they're underdeveloped. They're underdeveloped intentionally so, but I didn't like that. I didn't feel like there were characters that I really connected with that much. So when things go bad for them and they're put in danger, I don't really feel super invested in them. So that's part of the problem for me. So that's generally kind of how I feel about it. But obviously the Vader scene is epic and amazing stuff. So that's another that's one of the best Star Wars scenes ever, I think. So some people would say that's fan service. Fan service is an interesting discussion as well. So fan service is something that is generally considered a negative. It comes with a negative connotation, right? A negative a view of what fan service is. But for me, I kind of view it as, so they're giving the fans what they want, so it's a bad thing. it's a bad thing in the sense when it sacrifices the integrity of the story. But if it doesn't sacrifice the integrity of the story and it's giving fans what they want at the same time, why is that a bad thing, right? Like I'm going to a movie and I will go into it and I want it to be scary, and it is scary. Is that fan service? Right? I mean, like, what exactly does that mean? Like, I'm not picking on Dennis here because a lot of people feel that way, but that's a term to me that I don't really, you know, completely I'm not aligned with that mindset because, like I said, as long as it doesn't get in the way of something, then like a lot of people feel Game of Thrones season 7 is fan service, right? I don't. I don't feel like it's that way. I feel like it's makes sense for the story. It provided the action that a lot of people wanted, the fantasy dragons, the those kind of things. I like that. I like the fantasy elements of it, like I mentioned earlier in the show. So if you guys want to, when I post it, this will go up actually when I'm done streaming. I think automatically. I'm not positive, but yeah, generally that's kind of how I feel about it. So we got about 5 minutes here until we hit the hour mark. So if there's anything else you guys want me to discuss, I think that's pretty much everything. Real quick, I'll talk about Black Panther. Black Panther I have not seen yet, obviously, because I don't have access to early screenings. You guys know that about me by now. I will see it. It comes out next Thursday for me. So hopefully I get access to those kind of things soon. I've been trying to, get access to that kind of stuff, but it's very, very difficult for, a channel my size. But it's got 100% right now, I think. So Black Panther is riding high right now, so I'm really excited. Oh, it's got a 99. Somebody gave it a negative review. Still an 8.4 rating out of 10. I bet that negative review, people are going to hate on that person. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. Black Panther was probably my favorite character in Civil War. I loved him, and I'm really excited to see more of him. I love Michael B. Jordan. I think he's going to be a great villain. I heard he's great. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But so we got about 3 minutes left here. Sorry. Ryan Coogler is a terrific director. Yes. I forget what else has he directed? Let me check. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, he did Creed and Fruitvale Station. Okay, so he likes Michael B. Jordan then, obviously. Yes, Creed is amazing, and I would love to do a video essay on Creed. So that's something that you guys would like to see, then let me know, because I watched Creed again on Amazon Prime a little while, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I loved it. I loved it even more. It's so good. That's exactly how you reboot a franchise. They rebooted Rocky in that way, and that's exactly how you do it. So Creed is amazing, and if it's anything like Creed, then then Black Panther is gonna be awesome. Because I actually didn't love Fruitvale Station. Funny enough, I saw it with my brother, and he really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people really loved it, but I didn't love it very much. I forget exactly what I didn't like. I feel like the characters weren't that interesting to me. I just felt kind of weirdly meshed together, I think. But generally speaking, yeah, I kind of Dennis said Creed is his favorite sports film. Yeah, that's a good pick. Definitely not racist though. Yeah, but anyway, if there's any other, or if Dennis has any other questions, I don't think anyone else can ask another question. Got about another. I'm trying to keep this about an hour or so it can be easily digested, so to speak. So, generally, yeah, if you guys want to know my earlier thoughts in the video, next time, let me know what you want me to discuss in a live stream, and I'll, try to streamline things and be a little bit more organized. This is just sort of a initial first live stream that I was going to do just to kind of get my feet wet in it and, kind of see how you guys feel about it. So we got 4 people watching tonight, and that's about what I expected as short notice. But if we want to do these live streams every Wednesday night or something at 8, we can do those kind of things, or set up a certain time for you guys that you would want to see this stuff. And I'll discuss whatever you want me to discuss, movie related, not politics related. You guys probably saw there's a couple people who have been hounding me about that. So we'll see what happens with that. So Dennis asks, favorite director. I would say probably Denis Villeneuve or Christopher Nolan. Those are probably my favorite two. I like Damien Chazelle a lot. I've only seen 2 of his movies. I think those are his big movies that he's done, Whiplash and La La Land. Yeah, but those are 2 of my favorite movies, so I like him a lot. Christopher Nolan has done a lot of great movies. Denis has done 3 movies that I love. I want to talk about Blade Runner, not tonight, but another live stream, because Blade Runner is Man, I'm gonna take so much hate for that live stream of that video. Blade Runner is I think the most overrated movie of 2017. So I really wanted to love it. I love Denis, he's my favorite director probably, and I wanted to love it, but I just didn't. I don't really love the original Blade Runner, so that might be why. So that's probably heresy to a lot of movie fans, but that's just kind of how I view it. So um, generally speaking, yeah, that's just kind of how it is for me. So if Dennis or anyone else wants to ask one last question before we sign off here, we're a little over an hour now. So if anyone wants to ask one last question before I go, then I will answer that, and we'll plan to do this at like maybe 8:30 on Wednesday nights or something. That's kind of cool. I'll plan to make this a regular thing, so you guys know when to tune in. Let me know what topics. Just comment on any video and let me know what topics you want me to discuss. And we can discuss anything. There'll be plenty of movie news we can discuss pretty much whenever. When I get the WillFoxification podcast launched, then I'll bring guests on and we can start doing more in-depth stuff, and that'll be fun. And just have me talk to other people, not just me sitting here talking to you guys. So that really just depends on what you guys are looking for. Favorite musician, man, I'm gonna take a lot of heat for this too. Favorite musician, my favorite band. Well, my favorite musician is probably Bryce Avery. If I had to pick, have you ever heard of the band called the Rocket Summer? It's a one-man band. He has always kind of been my favorite. I kind of like what he stands for based on what I know about him. I like that he plays all the instruments. I like how well he sings. I've always been a fan of Owl City, the one-man band show as well. Owl City is kind of another one that it gets a lot of heat, but obviously they're not, as talented or good of players as like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix or John Mayer. Like those guys are great, but those guys are another level. So favorite musician would be one of those two, but like obviously best musician is something different. So do I make music? I do, not as much anymore, just because I've been so busy. The YouTube thing takes up a lot of time. And I used to, the songs that you hear in the videos, the intro and the outro are both my music, and I use those so I don't have to worry about copyright issues. Some people hate that because they think they're not very good, and that's fine. But it was like recorded in one day, so that's why it doesn't sound like super crazy good. But yeah, I play piano, as you can see behind me. I play guitar, and I started out playing bass. I play a little bit of drums, but never got too deep into drums. But that's a topic for another podcast or another live stream. So make it a new show for the channel. Okay, you mean like a new music show or what? Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Yeah, but I can incorporate music in here somehow. So thank you to the 4 of you that showed up tonight to watch. I really, really appreciate it. For everyone else who is watching this later, if you watch this whole thing, then thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's try to set a weekly thing, maybe Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so East Coast time. Yeah, let's kind of plan on that. We can kind of discuss things and then kind of go from there. I'll try to, like I said, let me know what you want me to discuss, and then I can be a little more organized and less rambly. So then we can kind of go from there. So, but let's plan on setting up a Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time every week live stream, and then kind of go from there. So one thing I'll discuss that next time, actually, once I can kind of gather my thoughts on it. But thank you for watching to the 4. Thank you, Dennis, for your help. Thank you to the 4 of you that are watching for tonight's live stream. I really appreciate it. Like I said, those of you that are watching later, I talk about in the title, as you can see, Deadpool 2 trailer, Star Wars, Cloverfield Paradox talk, and Q&A, all those things. And next time we will be a little bit more organized and then kind of go from there. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this was entertaining in some way. And the reason I'm not looking at the camera, as you can see, is because it is a webcam and it is up top there. And that's kind of why I guess I could look at it like this, but it is kind of awkward because my neck is kind of like that. So that's why I'm not doing that. That's why I'm looking down the whole time. But anyway, thank you to the 4 of you that watch and everyone else watching later. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. I should have a review coming out probably tomorrow and then Friday, I would say. So two reviews coming out soon. So stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching again.